Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. And we're live. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the world, this is Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Two guests, special guests, because they take their time to join me on the show. I'm joined by Steve and Damon here at Collectors World. We're actually doing a podcast live. And for those that don't know, I have two kids, and one of my sons is really into collecting football cards, basketball cards, all these things. And this has been a great place for me to bond with my son. We come in here at least once a month, and come to find out, we have connections with the owner, or we'll get into that later. So, Steve and Damon, why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners, whatever.
This is Damon, so I'm one of the owners with Steve. We acquired Collectors World about 13 years ago, and so we've had a lot of fun. We'll talk a lot about that. I'm a George Mason grad as well. So, business career prior to Collectors World and during Collectors World, of course. We'll talk more about that too.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Steve Weber, and I'm the co-owner here at Collectors World, and go back with Damon 20 plus years, and we've been fortunate to land in a business that we both really love. Excellent.
And so, for your experiences, both of y'all transitioned into ownership, right? Tell us a little bit about that transition to ownership.
It's a funny story, this is Damon. So about 13 years ago, I was consulting in Washington, D.C., and I was driving home. And I try to avoid traffic, and I try to just keep driving. Next thing you know, I look up, and I'm in Annandale, Virginia. And I'm like, oh, that's a baseball card shop right there. Now, I did that as a kid, so it really appealed to me. So I was like, I got to check this out. So I went inside the store, looked around. I said, you guys do consignment by chance? He's like, no, not unless you want to buy this place. And I said, well, how much you want? He threw out a number, and I thought about it. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, it's the only one guy I'm going to call first. So I called Steve in the parking lot. And I said, hey, you want to buy a baseball card shop? And he's like, yeah, sounds like fun. I thought he was going to say I was crazy because this is in 2013. The market was not hopping and not known for baseball cards. And he was like, you know what? I want to do it. And so I went down to the bank, took out $5,000.
Okay.
Went back to the shop, and I said, here's a down payment. We'll close at the end of the month. He said, you're not messing around, are you? And I'm like, no. Well, this was really fun. It brings back my childhood memories. Had to do it with Steve because I knew his strengths and my strength were going to offset each other. Luckily, it's two different strengths completely. So I knew he would handle a lot of the administrative stuff, and I would handle a lot of the inventory stuff given my background. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, I was super excited.
There we go.
There it is.
I was super excited when Damon called that day because for anyone out there that has been around sports cards, there was a boom in the 80s, and I was a part of that boom. And so to hear, baseball cards, I was like, oh my gosh, this brings me back. And when I checked out the store and thought about what we could do with it, it just brought a lot of ideas and things we could do to really grow it.
Now, so when you said the $5,000, was it like your personal money or a small business loan?
Oh, it was our personal money. Yeah, we fortunately we were in pretty good shape at that time. Steve and I started together in government contracting in the mid 2000s, and so we worked really well together in like two or three different companies, two or three different kind of environments. We kind of grew up together. I was his first supervisor. We're 6 years apart, so I was 31, he was 25, I think, when we met.
All right.
And we were given one project, which is a cool business story, by the way. Our very first corporate level project was actually saving money through office expenses for a huge company. And so they were spending over $2 million a year. And they're like, if you guys can reduce it $1 million, then we'll get like a gold star. No financial upside or incentive, just a gold star. So Steve walked in my office, fresh out of business school, and he's like, hey, you got anything for me? I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. And so we started saving money on HP 56 printer cartridges back in 2005, and That's how we rolled in the very beginning, and then we did all kinds of other business development opportunities, operational type of
just building the
build
skills.
It up. Yep.
And I see the James Madison, so I shout out the Dukes of James Madison. So I'm assuming you were a Shoker business alum.
I was, yeah. JMU undergrad, Virginia Tech Graduate School, and here talking to George Mason today. So Virginia through and through.
That's crazy. Yeah, I feel like I got 2 touch points: undergrad at JMU and Mason. So obviously both our schools prepare us for stuff. So you said you made that decision to take out to do the money. Did you talk to your wife first? This was Valentine's Day. Or you was like, let's do it, I got it? Or did you, business-minded, did you at least put a plan on paper first before you took out $5K? Or how that work? And did Steve, he said yes, but did he say, like, can I see your plan on paper first or what?
So the initial business plan was literally a piece of notebook paper.
Okay.
Damon and I, over the phone, mapped out, hey, what are the expenses in the first 60 days that we need to cover? And we just bootstrapped it. No small business loan. We were both working full time in the government space, so it started as a pet project, right? It wasn't, hey, this is our career. We were just happy to kind of get something rolling on the side. And so that's something for everybody to keep in mind. Is thinking about doing a business. Sometimes it's just putting pen to paper to get started. Really, it doesn't have to be a 14-tab Excel sheet to feel like you're going to set yourself up for success. Like, just get your ideas on paper and bounce them off somebody smart, like we do with each other, and then you can take off from there. And
so a lot of things, too, and I work in career services, a lot of it was, you're taking entrepreneurship, right? And then were you all thinking, like, at the initial part, this was just a place to make additional income. This wasn't going to be full-time. Can you talk about that? Like, when you first bought this card shop, you're like, hey, that's just a side income place. It's not a full thing.
So the one thing that we had going for ourselves is we knew we could trust each other. So that's the first thing in a partnership. You have to trust 100%. The second thing is when I was 12 years old, I did my first baseball card show in the 80s when Steve talked about the boom.
Okay.
And I worked at a card shop when I was 14, 15.
Okay.
And then throughout college at Mason, I did card shows and helped pay my way through college.
Oh, you actually did card shows?
Mm-hmm. And I was early on eBay. Like eBay came out in 96. I was on eBay in 97.
Got it.
I was grading cards in 97 when grading cards was a really new thing. So I had that background to fall back on. Okay. So it wasn't like we walked in blind to a business. There's certain businesses.
You knew this business, and it wasn't like you going into the restaurants. You knew the card business ahead of time. Okay.
And there are 2 primary things that we looked at the business. Number one, we looked at buying collections. Yeah. It was going to be huge. And number 2 is online, in eBay in particular with my background. Steve and I are both very disciplined when it comes to the money side, so we weren't in it to try to squeeze $500 a month each. It would been nice, right? But we were all in, focused on reinvesting back in the business. Gotcha. Every dollar we made, we put back into it. We joked for years. Our very first hire was off of Craigslist. He was the only guy for the first 5 years that were making any money. Was the person we were paying
for here? Okay,
for here, yeah. First 5 years of the business, it was a grind.
So, for thinking about that, you're working your 9 to 5. When would you start delegating and bringing other people like that, full-time staff or any staff to think about that, right? Because you can't do everything in your 9 to 5. And this is great for small business owners. Like, when is the opportunity, or when do you make a good decision to scale up and get some extra support? Because you can't do everything. Like, get a marketing person. When do you decide to, like, get some help outside of you too?
Yeah, so for the first solid 5 years, we were a one-employee business because we were both engaged in our full-time jobs, 9 to 5. We had one guy who worked 6-7 days a week, and then we supplemented where it was needed. And then when did we really start bringing on more people? Probably about maybe 5 years ago was when we really made the decision to let's hire more labor.
Okay.
Let's get people in here that we can train, delegate, scale up our online business, and take this to where we want it to be, which right now is 2,000 to 3,000 transactions a week online.
Oh, okay. The online space. I didn't even know. I have not, I'll be totally transparent. I've never gone to your website. I only come here physically, but you have a very robust online site to do the transactions and stuff?
We do. We're highly invested in eBay right now. So we have 3 different eBay stores that focus on different areas,
and
that's where the bulk of our online business is.
Now, yes, I'm a collector. I came in that wave. I was saying I gave my kid all these cards, and then it went down. But I did see a resurgence during COVID.
Yeah.
What is going on with the card business? Why was there such a boom in regards to collections and during COVID? And like now, people are doing this again, this hobby again.
Well, in all honesty, when COVID first started, Steve and I both looked at each other like, well, who the heck's going to be buying baseball cards right now? We thought everyone was going to keep their wallet very tight, given the uncertainty. But what we found was over time, Kobe started the passing of Kobe in the Bulls documentary. That kind of kick-started people thinking about their collectibles in the boom of the 80s and 90s.
Gotcha.
And they started thinking, well, I wonder about my Kobe. If I have my Kobe rookie, if I pull it out worth some money, I really want a Kobe. I might get it graded. Well, that created that massive backlog of demand.
Gotcha.
And massive amount of interest. Everyone's stuck at home. So all the entertainment expenses that were happening typically in a non-COVID environment now starts, hey, I want to buy a Kobe, I want to buy a Jordan, I'm going to get real excited about this. So during COVID, we saw a massive boom. And that was the exact same time Steve and I agreed to really invest in the business and scale the retail side. So we went from 1,200 square feet store to 6,000 in that time frame.
Oh, you built this back out?
We built it out during COVID, which was not a good time to do construction or request permits from Fairfax County.
Right.
But a good time in the sense that, we're 100% focused. The consulting side and the government contracting went south, but the online business in this store went up. So the diversification of businesses, if you're going to do multiple businesses, I was a consultant, self-employed, is always a wise strategy because one may go down, another one may go up. So you're well diversified. And that boom was absolutely crazy. We actually went down to 0 employees. It was Steve working at his house and me working at my house during COVID.
Online, yeah.
And we're going to the post office every day, and we were literally shipping out 1,000 packages a week. It was just the two of us.
Going to the cards,
We both set up shipping centers in our basements. I was pulling Amazon boxes from neighbors' recycling bins because there was always a need for boxes to ship stuff out. We were on the phone every day. I got this, you got that. I was making runs to the store to pick up inventory that sold. It was crazy times.
So one of the things I think about, and it's kind of like stock then, so obviously when you're doing sports trading, you have to also understand what's going on in the world of sports.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, just an example right now, my son pulled out a card of his for his birthday and got a Saquon Barkley card. And we looked, we used this like app that tells you how much they're worth, and it was like $20, right? But does it kind of like go back down if they like suck? Like, does it go up? Like, does it, like you have to like, sell it while it's hot, like, with a card, right?
Timing is everything.
Okay.
Like as an example for football cards, for us, when we decide to sell football cards as a concentrated effort as a business, we look at August as the best time to sell. Now, why is that? It's because no one's playing bad.
Yeah,
and everyone's hyped up for this future season. Everyone's a rock star. It's not until you get 3 or 4 weeks into the season, Christian McCaffrey is done. Yeah. He's out, and his card value plummets. That's actually the time to buy. So a lot like the stock market.
Like,
totally like that. Timing's everything.
So, okay, to the inverse of that, right? I held on for so long. Is it in people's strategy, like as adult men, to hoard and keep and hold on to these things?
Not a good idea.
Or no, okay, that's what, okay, because my son might be on it. He was like, and I might have to bring him in here to start doing it. He's like, I need to go sell this card now.
Start him young, man.
And I was like, what? Like, you need to sell it now? I thought you hold on to like. Oh man, don't let my son hear this, because he already was like, I need to go back and take this individual card and sell it. So it is probably better to like understand what's going on in sports and do that stuff in the moment, rather than like for me holding on to these cards when I was from the 90s and now they're like $2, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of these cards are $2 that I got now.
Yeah.
I'll add that it's also important to hold on to what you like so that you have enjoyment. If you love Saquon Barkley, don't feel the need to sell just because it's high at that time. If you love Saquon Barkley, if you love collecting Eagles cards, hold on to them, and you know that part of it is having some aspect of collecting what you like, but it's always good to do a little bit of buying, selling, trading
to get used to that world,
and also to fund buying things that you like.
So, as an online shop, would you encourage small, like let's say this, I'm using everything like this and cards as teachable moments for my son. Do you think that kids should have, like, not kids, but with their parents' guidance, should have like their own little eBay and start getting used to that world right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at my background, I did attend George Mason Business School. Is great.
Yeah.
But I will say there's no better education than actually having your own business and learning. And you lose money enough even at 12 years old or 10 years old with your son, then that's going to be a life lesson for sure, especially if it's your own money.
And it's about business and learning about
it is. Now, to Steve's point, we divide the people into two groups typically: the true collector and the person who's in the hobby to make money. But the 21st century investor / collector is kind of a hybrid of the two. It's typically, to Steve's point, you got to fund the next box you want to buy. It's always good to be selling a little bit and cashing out. And we also help with collectors on consignment or people that want to liquidate and cash out. Even if you take a loss a little bit, that's better typically than holding on to it a long time. I mean, it's very difficult to achieve GOAT status. Like your Tom Brady's, your LeBron James, Michael Jordan.
Hall of Fame.
Pat Mahomes.
Cards, yes.
Majority of athletes are here today, gone tomorrow, especially in football. The shelf life is extremely short, and it's always smart to kind of cash out and kind of, if you're looking to continue to kind of stay in the hobby, invest. That's what we see now is kind of a hybrid. Yeah,
and I think the infusion of my son actually likes the game of football. That's why he likes, it's not just, he wants to just sell cards. He gets so excited of who the player is.
Well, it helps
it's both and, right?
It helps with reading. It helps with learning the numbers, the stats, and then going online and looking at the marketplace. Every category that we have in here extends far more than sports cards. Pokemon, it's comics, sports memorabilia, vinyl records. Every category has its market, right?
Yes, market. See, this is business, right?
It's pure business, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, and so one is now thinking about it, like this is an educational moment. Like, I talk about worth and value. This was something now I think about when I was a kid. This was something my dad actually took me to card shops and comic book shops and would talk about history too. The history part, that's what I like about it too. Like, who this player is? Absolutely. And my son don't know, and we talk about it and we like, this, so these are all different things you can learn about: culture, history, business, all through a hobby, Absolutely. And I think that's awesome.
Well, that's our favorite part. When we buy a big collection, we love doing the research side of it.
Like who this person is.
Especially like 100 years ago. That's like the best because you're really kind of diving into that person's background, what the culture was like back then, the challenges and the environment and what they overcame is always fun to read about.
So is there such thing still as card shows? I mean, that sounds ignorant, but because I know Comic-Con and I go to Comic-Con and comic books, but is there one specifically just for cards around here or in the DMV area?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the biggest shows in the country, and it ranks in the top 10, is the Chantilly Show. It's at the Dulles Expo Center out in Chantilly, Virginia, and we're one of the biggest vendors there. And you would be shocked, you would be surprised at the amount of cash put on tables at these shows. It's a high traffic environment, and individuals are out, making big deals, buying big cards, selling big cards. It's a fantastic show. I definitely recommend it for anybody looking for a show in the area.
Yeah, that, for sure. And what's amazing is when you see the 12-year-olds putting down $3,000 in cash buying a card, and I tell you what.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
let's pause. Let's just pause there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to the Chantilly show. When is the Chantilly show?
The next one I think is in April. It runs 3 times a year.
Okay, we're going to this. Me and Ben are going to this show.
Oh yeah.
And you're saying there's kids dropping grands.
Oh yeah. Benjamins, just laying it out
with their parents behind them, right, or something like that.
They started the fund, but then with the buying and selling, they build up.
Kids doing this.
The kids are doing it, and the kids they will wear you out just as much as an adult, if not more. They are online. They're seeing the market and the fluctuation. It's really impressive.
And so, what is some now we have like, talking about what are some pitfalls or things that people should be aware of, like, not cons, but like adversities, like, make sure that you're not getting spammed or, make sure that kids are safe.
Yeah. One thing I would say on that is if you buy off of Facebook and you buy offline, quote unquote, you lose your protections. So if you spend any kind of money, you want to be protected. eBay has a really good program called the eBay guarantee program, and it actually goes through eBay. They validate that it's an authentic card if it's over $250, and they'll send it to you. That protects the seller and the buyer. Facebook, other places may not have that protection. If you go through PayPal, it's good to use goods and services. It's an extra 3% to the seller that they have to pay, but from a buyer perspective, you get the tracking number and you're protected. So you got to be very careful of that. Anything in person, it's always good to have a friend there to kind of help make sure that the card is authentic. Third-party grading is very popular. PSA is the gold standard. So if it's a PSA slabbed card, that means it's authentic, number one. And then the rating scale is 1 through 10, right? So if it's a 10, it's a gem mint. That drives the scarcity, supply and demand side, right? And that also protects you. And in person, it's a commodity, basically. It's very easily to look at the comp, quote unquote, just like buying and selling a house. You see what the house is selling in your neighborhood, and then you get a good idea what your house is worth. Same concept in baseball cards.
And if you're new to the market, if you're new to the hobby, just do your research and understand what you're looking at. In a hot market, which we're in today, you're always going to have bad actors. Just like if you're into Louis Vuitton, there's fake bags out there. If you're into designer watches, there's imitation versions out there. So do your research, understand what you're looking at before jumping in, especially on a big purchase.
And so my next question is then, thinking about it, it's going to dip again, right? Like, what would make it dip? Like over and saturation in cars? What were some things like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So one of the things that, we have going for us in the hobby today is that we can learn from yesterday, right? So the hobby that Steve and I grew up in was oversaturated completely. They call it the junk wax era. Typically, you could define that between 86 and 95. That was the run of cards that they just mass produced. It was a hot hobby, hot market. Everyone was buying them, and everyone was just buying cards blindly. I remember as a kid selling them left and right. Hoops, 89 hoops, 89 pro set, all that stuff was just like, and it comes in constantly today, and we got to tell people 20 times a day, sorry, it's not worth anything. So Fanatics is now the premier leader in this market of unopened material. They sell tops. They own tops. They are very wise to that. And so there's all kinds of protections on the supply side. So it feels good now, but to your point, every market always has a dip, right? So it depends on what that looks like. But it almost feels like it's more macroeconomic, where if the economy really goes sideways, it does have an impact. But we're in a different age now. You have more and more people using this as a semi-business and then buying and selling. And so we always encourage that. A lot of people sell. So it used to be old school shops wouldn't like people coming in trying to make money off you. Now we encourage it. If you want to buy some things, you think you can flip it, make money, great. And that helps fuel the economy.
Yeah, I think going back to Damon's point on unopened material on wax, the folks that are in the companies and producing new cards today are very aware of the oversaturation issues of the 80s and 90s. And on any given product that comes out today in the last number of years and going forward, we always feel like we get about 80 to 85% of what we can sell. So any time a product comes out, we always could have used just a little bit more. In other words, people are coming in and asking for it. And so that's a good sign. They're underproducing to the demand, which is what we want to see. You never want to see stuff sitting on the shelf. You want to see it getting gobbled up and on to the next thing.
And then I think this will be my last question, and then we'll do our last segment of my show, what about the different identities and diversity of sports collecting, right? Like you're saying different ages, women, do you see women getting involved, and I say this like in a sense that we knew that women fandom skyrocketed with Taylor Swift, right? Like Taylor Swift got involved and now all these women are buying jerseys, like do you see more different people getting involved in this collecting space?
Yeah, when we first bought the business, I would say it was 95% white male over the age of 40. Yeah. And now it is way more diverse and younger. And that was a strategy of a lot of the major sports and the companies that produce cards to get younger. So that's number one. And then the female demographic, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, all that has really boosted females into the sports hobby, but also the females into Pokemon is huge. And a lot of the childhood that is, now, women in particular might be 30. We see a lot of 25, 30-year-olds buying Pokemon like crazy. Not just sports cards of Caitlin Clark. So there's that side of it. I mean, Pokemon for us is absolutely insane. And we're too old to understand and appreciate Pokemon. When we first bought the store, we're like, what is that? We want to keep that going. And then we found out real quick, it's here to stay.
Yeah, we frankly thought about discontinuing buying Pokemon product when we first bought the business. We didn't understand it. We didn't think it was worth our time or efforts, and we thank ourselves every day that we did not do that. Pokemon's multi-generational. Came out in 1999, so you now have individuals my age with kids coming in and sort of looking at the old stuff, looking at the new stuff, and it's fantastic to see. And then just to echo what Dave mentioned on Caitlin Clark, one of the hottest selling cards in 2024 period over males or any other genre was Caitlin Clark, and so more young girls coming into the market. My daughter's a Girl Scout. All the Girl Scouts want Caitlin Clark cards. It's fantastic to see.
Well, I mean, we pride ourselves here of the family of four. We want someone to find something in our store, So we don't want to stop with just the if there's a boy in the family, the boy's going to buy the sports cards, and everyone has to wait, and they just get all tired and grumpy. We want the family of four to have something fun to enjoy, whether it's a vinyl record, Pokemon booster box, autographed picture for the man cave. We want to appeal to something. That's why it's Collector's World, and we try to keep it broad. Yeah.
All right. So this is the last part of the show. It's called Shot for Shot. I'm going to ask you a random question, and you ask me one together. So, and it's going to be random, but this is probably not that random. What is your most prized card individually to you too? Your most, and when I say prized, I'm going to say this too, to your point, meaning not value, not, $1,000, like your most prized card.
So it's an interesting answer. Damon and I do not collect. So we just found that is the best way for our partnership to work. When we really like something, we put a high price on it so that it'll kind of hang out in the store a little bit longer. But the collection is the store. It just changes on a day-to-day basis. We very rarely, if ever, take anything home. We enjoy it. Doesn't mean we don't enjoy what we see and what we do, but everything is for sale.
Okay. So okay, first of all, you try to blow my mind. You own a card shop, but y'all have to have at least one card at home, right? Like, none?
It would be like if we owned an ice cream store and be like, well, what's your favorite kind of ice cream? How much ice cream you got to take home every day? I mean, yeah, we love ice cream. No get us wrong, but when it's shoved down your throat by a gallon at a time, it's a little different.
Now, it's funny you used that story. My first job was at Baskin-Robbins.
Oh, nice.
And after that job, I didn't eat ice cream for 2 years because I was just so I was like, my wife was like, that's when I started dating, I did it as like my first job, 14 years old, whatever. And then, actually it must have been like 5 years because then I met my wife at 18 and I still didn't want, she's like, oh, let's go on a date. And I'm like, I don't want to go to ice cream. I can't even smell it, so that's crazy. All right. So what's your question for me?
All right. What's your first job?
Well, there it is, Baskin Robbins.
That was your first job.
Yeah, my first job was Baskin Robbins, man. I grew up around here in Mount Vernon, and I was in Richmond Highway. It was off right near Mount Vernon. I could walk to it from work.
What was your hourly?
Shoot, dang. It must have been like $5.25 or something like that. I remember I felt like I was balling, and shout out. They can't get me now because I'm over it. But I at least gave out like $1,000 worth of free ice cream. They can't come get me, Baskin Robbins, whatever. Because what I would do is
probably price that in.
No,
right?
whatever. My friends would come in, and I'd be like, "Thank you, come again." They would just walk out with the ice cream, and then even like you would say, "Oh, like adults wouldn't do that." My best friend's dad would be like, "Yo, give me a pint of rum raisin, some stuffing pints of ice cream, and taking them home to even my own dad finesse, So but yeah, that was my first job at and it was over the summer, and then I had it a little bit hourly. But then I think in high school I always worked, and then my other job was a lifeguard, which is easy, just make sure people don't drown. So I always worked since I could get like a paycheck. That was something I always thought about, like Food Line. I've always had just a job, like a job. So I always value work. So I don't know, what's the youngest you can hire somebody?
We have one kid because he's 12 that helps out. We give him trade credit, so he's not on payroll, and we don't boss him around like that. But he loves it. He just loves the hobby.
No, I was about to say,
absolutely.
I'm of the generation. My kids, whenever they earliest without labor laws. Yeah. Get to work, like you don't get no and I say that to sense like I didn't need to. My dad's a colonel, my mom's a doctor, but I wanted to know the value of money myself. Have my own paycheck and go to cash my $50 check, from Baskin Robbins. So,
well, I tell you, people find out real quick though that it sounds fun working in the baseball card shop and a comic book store. You could sit and read comics and sort through cards, but it's completely different. It's work. Work is a job, and it's.
I'll tell you, Baskin Robbins. I thought it was always just scooping ice cream. That joint sucked. Going in the freezer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell one random story. One time, this is where I didn't like ice cream. A woman came in, and I accidentally spilt some ice cream behind the counter. And she reached over and said, "Don't waste it," went with her hand and licked it. And licked her hand. And I was like, mind you, I'm a little kid. I'm only 14. I'm not going to say, "Ma'am, don't." I just looked at her. And I was like, I can't tell an adult what to do. And I just stood there. And mind you, then I was like, this is crazy. I would never, this is work. This is a real job. These are things you don't need to experience.
Absolutely. My first job after the baseball card shop, I got a real job because the market dipped. So I worked at Safeway, and $4.25 an hour.
Yes.
And I went to my supervisor and said, I want to sign up for the stock plan as an employee. He said, "You want to do what?" He said, "You're a sophomore in high school. You want to buy stock at Safeway?" I'm like, yeah. Yeah, and I held that stock till I went to George Mason.
There it is, entrepreneur. Okay, you're putting me on the game for my son. All right, so this has been a great episode. This is part of the show called Shout Outs and Plugs. It means shout out, show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs. These are ventures, the website, anything that you want the listeners to be aware of, and I'll make sure to put it in the show notes.
Well, from a love perspective, just want to show love to all our collectors and customers out there that frequent Collectors World. Would love having you. I'd love seeing you out here on a regular basis with your families. And thanks for having us today. Plug wise, we're having Topps Rip Night on February 22nd. So if you happen to be a lover of baseball cards, or the baseball season is starting, we'll be having a great event that day, just celebrating the hobby, baseball focused, of course. And we'll have food and games for kids and things of that nature. So if you're listening to this and you're interested, come out and see us.
Well said. I think it is Valentine's Day, this recording. So Steve and I, our wives are always very valuable to us. Without them, we wouldn't be doing this grind for 7 days.
They let you pull out $5K and start a business. So shout out to them.
And so to put a wrap on that story, that night I went, dinner time. She's like, "What did you do today?" I was in Annandale, and I don't live anywhere near Annandale. She's like, what were you doing in Annandale? Well, I kind of took the wrong turn out of D.C. trying to avoid traffic. I saw a baseball card shop. "Oh, like you were a kid. That's cool." Yeah. I said, "Well," and then I bought it. She's like, "Oh, what did you buy in the store?" I'm like, "No, I bought the store, and Steve's going in on it with me." "You did what?" I explained it. She's like, when are you getting all the stuff out of the basement then?
Dude, I love.
So it worked out perfectly.
There it is.
It worked out
Shout
great.
out to the wives.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout
That's
out.
why we don't keep anything in the house.
There you go. That was the real reason why you don't collect. That was awesome. And so we'll make sure to put the website here. And then I'm going to try to release this earlier so that you can get some people for the Tops night. But Positive Filter listeners, it's been a great episode. For those that are listening, please support Collector's World. Is something, honestly, I wanted to do this podcast because for me, as you know, it's something I do with my son. Sometimes I randomly go on Instagram and do unboxings and things like that. So this has just been a great activity for me and my son to bond. So I really appreciate you two gentlemen for being on this, and also appreciate you just in general for having this space for people that want to do something with their kids. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for all his work fighting food insecurity. And then lastly, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider submitting a Pats for Patriots. There's a program to show love to anyone else at Mason. An act of kindness goes a long way. Continue to listen to episodes, support Collector's World, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.